So I purchased a sink plunger. So it's a plunger, but it's only meant for your sink. Now, obviously, look, when the sink gets stopped up, some people, they like to use the plunger from the bathroom, but you use that plunger on the toilet and to put that into your sink where you eat and food and stuff, it's not really sanitary. So that's why you have the sink plunger, just for the sink. Welcome to Section 420, Talkin Yankees. Well, the Yankees take round one of the Subway Series, take 2 out of 3 against the Mets, and of course the whole big return of Juan Soto coming to the Bronx there. Obviously got booed there and got hammered pretty hard, and if you're a Yankee fan, that was probably just about as good as it gets. Going to maybe a little greedy, you wanted to get the full sweep there, but the fact that the Yankees take 2 out of 3, and of course Soto has a miserable time there. It's probably just about as good as it's going to get there, so we'll kind of recap that whole thing. And not only that, but there's also some good moments, things to point out of that Subway Series that maybe kind of overlooked again with all the Soto drama. So even though it's a little bit of all those, we kind of go back and again point out some of the important points that might have gotten missed in that shuffle there. And kind of all that is we'll put a spotlight on a couple of Yankees that have been blossoming lately. One of them, Cody Bellinger, who had a grand slam, of course, in the Sunday night cap there, but also just beyond that, but also has been creeping up his average again. I've been beating up on him a little bit in some past episodes. Just getting, he was kind of hovering around 200 there, which a little bit of a disappointment. Yeah, he was hitting some home runs, stuff like that, but you also want to see the batting average going up. It has been going up, so we'll focus on him, as well as Will Warren, who's also been chipping in lately ever since they kind of booted Carrasco and DFA'd him out of the rotation. You see Will Warren picked his game up a bit, so we'll do a little spotlight on him. And of course, this week's matchup, we've been doing, speaking of Juan Soto, each week kind of comparing him to a Yankee with the stats there and just kind of maybe poking a little fun of Soto's, again, not really having a good start of the season at all, and now have some hustle issues there, so it's really starting to compound on him. So again, if you're that little, kind of a Yankee fan that wants to be a little spiteful, a little spurned because Soto chose the Mets over the Yankees there, and you want to see Soto fail then. So again, we'll just dig that a little bit. So this week matchup, as I kind of promised last week, it's going to be Juan Soto versus Jason Dominguez there. It kind of just compare the stats, how the two of them do this season. Again, Soto making like $54 million a year, and Dominguez making like peanuts there. So we'll kind of compare the two just as a way to maybe poke fun of Soto. But I think maybe Soto might have a little advantage this week, so we'll see how that goes. So a lot of good stuff for you for this episode. Before we get started, as I always remind you, there's an audio podcast version of the show. So, we're going to talk about the Subway Series in this episode because, it's a big thing, New York stuff. But you'd have to wait like a whole week, a week and a half. You don't want to do that. You could have gotten my take right after the Subway Series ended there. So make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show. So wherever you get your favorite podcast, look for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, subscribe there as well. And if you happen to be watching for the first time on YouTube, or you watch it a bunch of times on YouTube, you haven't been motivated yet, you just haven't done it there, you're a little lazy, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And if you happen to be watching on TV, you get both there. Go to YouTube, search for Section 420 Talkin Yankees, get subscribe there as well so you don't have to wait for a whole week to go by. And also make sure you get the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, wherever you get your favorite podcasts. So I guess the moment of the Subway Series, Yankee fans have been waiting since winter there because we know the whole backstory, Soto choosing the Mets over the Yankees there, and the whole idea is like how the reception would be for Juan Soto coming to Yankee Stadium for the first time. Now, I thought, it was probably a little bit harsher than I thought it would be. Just, a couple of reasons. I mean, you look at, all right, you can feel as Yankee fans, they were like spurned a little bit that Soto picked the Mets of all teams there. So you figure, you have that. But the fact also, you want to look back a little bit, Juan Soto, last year for the Yankees, had a good season for them. We all know what he kind of was. I mean, yeah, you would have liked him to stay here, but, there was also the possibility this was going to be a one-year rental. He had a great season for you. Got the Yankees, helped get him to the World Series. Had that big home run against Cleveland, really, which put that divisional series away there. Really sent the Yankees to the World Series away there. So, and of course, in the World Series itself, unfortunately, the Yankees lost there. Had really nothing to do with Juan Soto. And again, the Yankees were just overmatched by the Dodgers in so many different facets of the game. But overall, Soto gave you a good season there. But so you figure, with the fans, this may be, a little boo, but not too harsh like that, and and plus the fact you would have probably a lot of Met fans, always buying tickets to go into the Yankee game, and the Yankee fans always end up at Citi Field, or vice versa. So, I figured it'd be a bit, a little boo, but not really too harsh. Maybe a little smattering boos, and then kind of maybe after the first or second at bat, it just kind of would wear off a little bit, and then maybe at once in a while get business as usual there. So that's what I thought it would be. Now again, you figure someone like Altuve comes in and like that's someone you hate. It was hard to see, even if Yankee fans feel a little spurned by Soto, that they're going to hate Soto. So I was expecting that a little negative, but not too negative. But this was actually turned out to be even harsher than I thought it would be. And I like what both Yes and WPIX, who covered the game, actually didn't cut to a commercial. They actually, kept the cameras rolling to the bottom of the first inning just to see how the Bleacher Creatures, how the Yankee Stadium crowd would, react to Juan Soto there. And again, to my surprise, they had this whole thing. They turned their back on him, that whole field there. And, even throughout the games, we heard a couple of F Soto chants, which again, I didn't think that would happen, but actually did break out a few times, really the whole weekend there. So, the Yankee Stadium crowd, they really gave it to, Soto there. Now, he came out and tipped his cap there, where I figured if you heard a couple of cheers, maybe just play towards that, but it was like all boos. It was like 95% boos there. So, and even that, I was a little surprised there wasn't as many Met fans in the crowd as I thought there would be. So maybe the fact that the Yankee fans held on to their tickets and didn't want to sell off there just because they wanted to be there for that moment there. But you would figure even though like the Mets would have a heavy, Met fans would be heavily in there as well just to cheer them on there. But you didn't really hear any cheering at all, man. It was just all boos, like 95% boos there. So again, the fans were a little harsh on him than I thought he would be, and you can see it kind of affected him a little bit, really out throughout the whole weekend. And for Juan Soto, didn't do much there. I know his first at bat he walked there. Now to his credit, he did have a couple of stolen bases, good for him. But other than that, obviously it was just the way the whole season had been for him. He just had one hit the whole weekend. I think I had a hit on the Sunday game. Really gave you nothing there. No big moments, no part, no rallies. And if you're the Yankee fan, it was just about the perfect weekend. Other than you would like to take all 3 games there. Obviously, they lost the Saturday game 3-2, but really convincing if you wanted to look at collectively all 3 games. I mean, clearly the Yankees were the better team than the Mets. And, you can see if they're both kind of Yankees were marginally better than the Mets there. But you look at the Friday night game, 6-2 there. I mean, the Yankees kind of put that one away pretty much early by the 3rd or 4th inning. That game was put away. Now the Saturday game was actually a really good, well played game, almost a playoff type of game there. Unfortunately, the Mets squeaked away to win, taking the lead there in the 9th inning there. But that's the game very well the Yankees could have won as well. In the bottom of the 8th here. You had DJ LeMahieu, bases loaded there, smoked the ball to right field. Unfortunately, went right to Soto there. But other than that, DJ hit the ball around the screws there, just at the wrong person. But easily the Yankees could have won that game. And of course, the Sunday night game, obviously the 8th inning, the Yankees having that big, game was tight, for the most part. But then because the Yankees busted it open in the 8th inning there, capped off by Cody Bellinger, hitting that grand slam, and just so fitting. This is one of the points, I wanted to bring up. I think it's just so fitting for Bellinger of all the people. Again, he's kind of guy who kind of replaced Soto more or less, hitting a home run to right field right over Soto's head. You saw Soto about to attempt to leap, and he kind of just gave up on the ball. And the ball really wasn't hit that far. It was maybe the first, second row right behind him there. But just fitting, just the whole thing of everyone, it was Bellinger hit that grand slam, put the game away, and stick it right to Soto. Again, Bellinger the kind of person to replace Soto. So again, if you're a Yankee fan, it was probably everything you'd wanted. The Yankees clearly were the better team. Overall, we look at the whole weekend. Soto did nothing there, and of course, you got the boo Soto, and he had really no impact on really the higher weekend. As his season really just continues just to be miserable, having a miserable start there in the Mets uniform. And again, you see this starting to get on him. The press is getting on him. You hear all these different stories and rumors now with Soto. Now, of course, the latest one being that supposedly Soto wanted to come back, but it was more his family was pushing him to go to the Mets to take the more money. So you got all that drama, and he's going to be asked a lot of stuff. And of course, the Sunday night game, there was that one incident, hit a ground ball, DJ LeMahieu playing at second base, and hey, DJ since he's been back, totally looks like a much better player than the version we've gotten the last couple of years, where he almost looks like a corpse. I mean, after him having second base and showing a lot of range, and probably Soto was shocked DJ even got to the ball. Maybe that's why, but obviously slow walking at the first base there, got thrown out. Met fans upset at him the next day of that. Again, I mean, one thing could be you're not hitting well, you're hitting into bad luck there, but running to first base, that's the bare minimum. I mean, that's the bare minimum. He wasn't even doing that. And then they had the issue a game 2 after, right after in Fenway there, hitting a ball at the Green Monster, which he thought was going to be a home run. Only turned out to be a single, when again, that should have been at least a double at the bare minimum. Again, wasn't hustling there. So not only have performance issues with Soto right now, but now non-hustling type of issues there. So really, it's an avalanche on Soto right now. And you're almost like tired of talking about it a little bit, but maybe not, because we just want to pile on with Soto. But that's the one thing from the weekend. But there were other points of the weekend that I think were key. And one of course, DJ LeMahieu. Now, I'm not going to say DJ's back officially, but he's only been a handful of games. Obviously, rejoined the team when they were in Seattle there. Not much of a litmus test yet, but if you look at that Saturday game against the Mets there, getting a home run there, hitting the ball hard, and you got to make a defensive play at Saturday as well, and the Sunday game. So you see him at second baseman, which I was kind of shocked Boone was going to him as much. I mean, I was assuming he would play third base and they would put Vivas at second there, but DJ's been playing second base and he's been looking good. I mean, 36 years old there, and it's asking him to cover a lot of ground. He's been making all the plays and hitting the ball. And again, I like the way he was hitting the ball Saturday, just on the screws. Again, had a double. He had had a home run. And again, he almost could have had like a game-winning hit there in the bottom of the 8th there. Unfortunately, hit it right to Soto there. So if that's the version of DJ LeMay we're going to get, and hopefully that's the case there, then I'll sign up for that. Is that going to be like the MVP type of DJ from like 2018, 2019? No, but if he's just going to be better than he was the past couple seasons, which has been rough. I mean, he's been barely struggling to hit a little over 200 there. This version, at least we saw this week, in the Subway Series against the Mets, that looks like a much better version of DJ LeMay. So if he's kind of that professional hitter type, and you put him there with like someone like a Paul Goldschmidt, this professional hitter type there, that's really good news for the Yankees. So that was a key takeaway from the weekend as well. And also, you got to look at Devin Williams coming in the 9th inning there, 8th inning of the Friday game there. Strikes out the side there in the 8th there, and against some tough hitters there, and that's probably the best he's looked the whole season there. Again, velocity has been where he's been, 94 with the fastball and about 83 to 85 with the changeup. Again, that's normally what it is. Again, he's not a flamethrower that throws 100. We all knew that stuff. So, when Devin Williams was struggling with the Yankees, this first few weeks here this season there, we don't know if it was a weather thing, was it a stuff thing. I mean, this seemed out of whack there. So, but that version we saw, in the first game, the Friday game against the Mets, that was probably the best version of him. Again, he strikes out the side there, looked in control there. So again, if that's the version of Devin Williams, moving forward there, even more good news for the Yankees. Now I got a funny feeling though, even if he starts performing well, I don't think, for some reason, it's the way reading the writing on the wall, I don't think they'll make the switch back. I think this might just stick with Weaver as the closer the rest of the way, just because again he's been so good at doing that. He's ready there. I don't think you want to keep flip-flopping guys around a little bit. So even though the original plan was for Devin Williams to try to find it and then kind of move him back in the closer role, I think they just might just stick. If Devin Williams performs well in the 7th to 8th inning and he's good there, why mess with him? They just might just leave him there. And maybe it was the pressure. Maybe it was the pressure of the 9th inning, just in the Yankee uniforms getting to him. Who knows there? But again, if he could be good moving forward there, that'd be good news for the Yankees. And I think this might be easy to stick with Weaver as the closer. I mean, his stuff looks obviously is better than Devin Williams' stuff there. So maybe if that's going to work for the Yankees, that's the formula. Why mess with it? So I thought that was important, and also important. I thought also too to point out. And not to brag and just pat myself on the back there, but if you look at that big, the Sunday night game, the big, 8-run 8th inning there, where they just blew the game open. It really got started with Yorba Vivas, obviously with Dominguez on third base there. Vivas puts a good at bat on that, 11 pitch at bat. It was actually like the most pitches per at bat for a Yankee at bat in like many years there. It was a grinding at bat there. Now, the reason I bring that up is a couple of weeks ago when Jazz went down, I mentioned that Jazz, we like Jazz. There's a lot of things he does well. What I don't like about Jazz is that bat stay. Too much of a free swinger. I mean, right now he's only hitting like 163. Obviously, the season's very young there. But again, he doesn't really grind out at bats. You don't see him really foul off many pitches and really work the count. So I said maybe one of the silver linings of him being out there is that if you have anybody else there playing second base, even someone like Vivas maybe doesn't have a resume or doesn't have the physical tools of a Jazz there, but at least he'll probably give you a better at bat. He'll make more contact, foul pitches, and as long as you make contact, John Sterling to say, just put the ball somewhere in the infield. Anything could happen. You could have a bobbled play. You could have an error. Something could happen there. But again, if you've kind of something like Jazz that just swings for the fences all the time and strikes out, you're not putting the ball in play. It's it's hard to make things happen. And in this case in point, the Sunday game there, Vivas a little dribbler to Pete Alonso there. Now again, it's a play that most first baseman should easily be able to gun down Dominguez running from third base there, but the ball sailed over the catcher's head. Dominguez was able to score there, and then the Yankees from there just busted it wide open. But again, the whole point of that, the crux was Vivas putting a good at-bat there, fouling off a lot of tough pitches, and then getting a little dribble to first base. Now, yeah, did he smoke the ball? No, but he put the ball in play. Once you put the ball in play, things could happen, and of course, Alonso airmails the ball there, and the Yankees bust that game open in the 8th inning. So, that's why it was really important to focus at having someone who can just make more contact than someone like Jazz there. So if you're a Yankee fan, obviously you have the next matchup at Citi Field. That'll be the July 4th weekend. We'll see where both teams are at right in a particular position. Now, coming into the game, coming into that series, the Mets actually had a little bit of a better record than the Yankees. The Yankees had a little bit more of a lead in the AL East versus the Mets lead in the NL East, which now they've lost now to the Phillies. So they're actually behind the Phillies right now as the Mets scuffled a little bit against the Yankees a little bit. So, they kind of both came in equal footing there. But afterwards, just looking at all the teams there, everything involved, getting clear, it seemed like the Yankees, I'll say astronomically better than the Mets, but they were just definitely the better team than the Mets overall there. And again, a lot of it has to just do with the struggles of Soto right now, who just, again, obviously he's hearing all over from the press right now. It's got to be bothering him a little bit. He has a smile on his face there, and he's kind of a, kind of laid back type of guy there. But you figure it might be getting to him a little bit there. So until he turns around, it's going to keep piling on him. But as for the Yankees, But I always say at least what you want to do is not get swept at all. I mean, you just don't want to do that in the Subway Series. Have Met fans there. So the fact that you didn't get swept, but now you get swept, you took 2 out of 3, and you looked like a better team there. So if you're a Yankee fan, you're in a good place right now. You're happy with Bellinger. You're happy with Goldschmidt. You're happy with Max Fried right now because those 3 came as a result of not signing Juan Soto there and getting Soto in the Mets. So they're going to have to figure out what's going to go on with them. And of course, I mentioned later in the episode, we'll look at Soto. We'll bring him up one more time, even though you're probably sick of hearing about him, and we'll compare him to the Martian just to see how they're both doing right now in the season there, just to compare them. More to poke fun at Soto a little bit, but I think Soto might finally have a win this week, so we'll see what happens later in the episode. I guess good time as well to talk about Cody Bellinger, who again had that big grand slam against the Mets. They really kind of put that game and put that series away there. And you got to see his bat's heating up a little bit now. If you look at the stats right, he's at 258 batting average. Well, that's not great. But if you compare where he was a few weeks ago, when he was kind of hovering around 200. In fact, I did a whole segment saying a little bit of a disappointment. Yeah, obviously he was giving you the power there, playing good defense, and again had a couple of really good sliding plays to actually end games there. So getting that, but you'd want the batting average to be up a little bit there. Again, you don't have to hit 300 there, but you want to be a little bit more confident than like 206, which you can seem like it was hovering around a lot. But now you see his bat really starting to come alive a little bit, starting to add in now. You remember, he did have some issues. Obviously he had the food poisoning situation with the I guess those buffalo wings you ordered from hotel room service, which I don't know why you would do that. You were having millions of dollars. You could probably get better food somewhere else. But nevertheless, had the food poisoning there. Took him out for a little bit, and then of course he had some back discomfort. They took him out a couple of games of the Pittsburgh series there. So again, he had a few ailments there. So you could say maybe that and plus again, similar with Juan Soto's probably going through with the Mets right now. New team, new uniform, trying to get acclimated. Yeah, he's in a less precious situation than Soto was there. But all those things and the injuries and the food poisoning take a while to maybe hamper him a little bit. But now you start to see him turn it on a little bit, being the guy we thought we'd get, providing some of that power, and again taking advantage of the short right field at Yankee Stadium there, which he did. Hitting 258, up to 7 home runs, 28 RBIs, and 41 hits total there. And you could probably say, there's always, anytime you get a free agent or a new person, at least a big name player comes to the Yankees, which you would say he is in a way. And, is he a superstar he was maybe like 5 years ago? No, but still, a marquee type of player there, a former MVP. You could probably say that Sunday game, hitting the grand slam was his quote-unquote Yankee moment. Now, I know it wasn't like a game-winning, it kind of was a game-winning home run, but not, usually have those big moments like we all know the iconic Giambi one, hitting that grand slam in extra innings there with the rain pouring down. So, was it an iconic type of thing? No, but you could probably say that was probably Bellinger's Yankee moment there. Just really more about the situation. I kind of just covered it, not just more at the top of the episode there. Just not only hitting a grand slam, but hitting it in the Mets series right over Juan Soto's head there again, and he's kind of the player that replaced Soto there. So you have the drama of that whole thing there. So I'd probably say that was probably Bellinger's Yankee moment. And even those things are starting to click for the Yankees right now. They're on a good place. Unfortunately, they're going to go the rest of the season without Oswaldo Cabrera. Now, he did have surgery on May 15th. Now, it was to repair both the ankle, and they say there was some ligament damage as well. And now, according to Aaron Boone, he said that it's very, very unlikely he will be available for any time the rest of the season. So probably most likely we've seen the last of Cabrera for at least 2025 there. Again, last episode here, on the YouTube/TV version of the show was like really right after he had the injury there. So we didn't have any prognosis at the time of the report. You knew it was going to be bad. He was on the floor screaming in pain. He had to be carted off. You knew it was going to be bad. Again, we didn't know exactly what was needed there, but again, shortly after that, had the surgery officially. So, and he's going to be done probably for the rest of the season. Again, unless some really heals miraculously and he has some great comeback, but according to Boone, he says it's very unlikely there. So unfortunately, have to go the rest of the way without Cabrera. And for the short term, the Yankees could hold down the fort a little bit. You've seen a little bit of mix, a little Peraza at third base, you Vivas at third base. DJ could play third base if he has to, but it seems like Boone wants to focus him on second base. It's going to be interesting when Jazz does come back, who he's still working his way back, doing some drills, hitting off a tee there, but he still has a way to go there. But when Jazz does come back, where does it go? Does Jazz play third base again for the Yankees like he did last season, and you keep DJ at second base there? But you figure it's a more athletic position, you probably want Jazz at second base and maybe move DJ to third there. So a little shuffling around a little bit, but right now it's going to open some doors for other players such as Vivas or Oswald Peraza, who even he himself started to percolate a bit. Had a couple home runs on the West Coast trip there. It seemed like the power that Peraza had in the minors is not really translating up here on the major league level. So he was kind of like a 20 home run type of guy in the minors there. Doesn't seem like that's part of the game up here in the majors there. So you'd like to see him with this playing time he'll get because of this, if he could start to contribute with the bat there. But for some reason it doesn't seem like that's part of his game. This might be what he is. So we'll just see how that all pans out there. But unfortunately for Cabrera, tough break for him again. So and again, he's a nice guy. He's always smiling there. But unfortunately had the brutal injury. So the Yankees just have to go the rest of the way without him. And I think think once they come to the trade deadline, I could potentially see the Yankees making a move for a third baseman there. Again, they don't have to. Again, the offense overall, again, the Yankees got the second best offense in baseball, just a smidgen behind the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers 5.9 runs a game. The Yankees 5.7 there. So the Yankees not dying for offense there. But you kind of like an everyday type of player at every position. Is kind of everyone gets comfortable there. But when Jazz comes back, it'll probably be a little bit of musical chairs. And another Yankee in addition to Bellinger that's up in his game, that's Will Warren in the starting rotation there. Obviously, early on, it's even struggled a little bit. Him and Carrasco were kind of in there in the 4 or 5 slot just due to some injuries, and really neither of them were flourishing there. And then, I don't know, maybe, the fact that they DFA'd Carrasco, did that snap something to Will Warren? We don't know that, but collectively since that point there, he's had 3 wonderful starts, and again, that was against the A's, one in Seattle, and then his last one, the most recent one, against the Texas Rangers, where he actually had eye-whopping 10 strikeouts in 5 2/3 inning there. So really starting to come on with, and if you look at the last 3 starts there, 18 total innings pitched, only surrendering 3 runs. So if you want to look at those 3 games, the ERA for those 3 games is 1.50. So he's really starting to turn it on with it, which is important for the Yankees as well as even Clark Schmitz and him coming back. He had a bit of a hard luck loss against the Mets in the Saturday game, but he pitched very well. Again, only gave up 2 runs there. In normal circumstances, that'd be good enough to get a win. Unfortunately, the Yankee offense, obviously really didn't get it going in that game there for him. Both Schmidt and Warren, though, both seem to be pitching well for the Yankees, so that's really a good turn there because you still got a ways away to go for Luis Gil right now. And at some point, Max Fried, he's going to probably struggle at some point there. Man, again, he's probably right now statistically the best starting pitcher in baseball. But at some point, he's going to struggle recently, or someone's going to pull a hammy or something like that, or maybe he has to go on the IL for a couple of weeks there. So something's bad to happen. So if you can at least have Schmidt and Warren giving you some quality inning there, and you're not tap into your bullpen early for the Yankees, again, that just helps the entire team. And shortly after the Subway Series against the Mets there, Brian Cashman spoke up, and he's kind of been quiet a little bit. Last time we really heard of him is when spring training, when him and Hal kind of gave the press conference of why they didn't sign Juan Soto, stuff like that. Cashman, again, been somewhat quiet since then, but spoke a little bit to the press there, kind of asked a bunch of questions about kind of the state of the Yankees and everything going on right now. And if you look at the Yankees are in a good place right now. Again, they're a season high, at least at this point, 9 games over 500 at 28-19. Got a pretty, not running away with the AL East, but at least a comfortable lead right now in that. But of course, they asked Cashman, did they see the Yankees make any moves specifically with third base? The fact, again, Cabrera is going to be out for the rest of the way there. And he kind of said, quote unquote, we got what we got, which kind of makes sense right now. I just don't think the Yankees are going to make any moves right now. Again, it's we're not even done with May yet. So, you still have until about end of July for the trade deadline there, where I think, again, the Yankees might be kicking around for a third baseman. Don't desperately need one, but they probably would like a steady Eddie there over all the time at third base there. But nevertheless, again, the Yankee offense, not really the problem right now, so it's not a dire need there. So, but if you look at the rest of the AL East, really not doing that well, man. If you look at the second place team, there's Boston at 25-25. There's 500. So if that's really your main competition is a 500 team there, I mean, if you're the Yankees, you're probably liking where you are right now. Now, of course, the Yankees will have some struggles. Remember last season they got off to a really good start, and then June and July was like pulling teeth to score runs, and it was terrible, and Clay Holmes was blowing games there, and it was a bad stretch for the Yankees there. So that could potentially happen again once the summer comes upon us there. But right now for the Yankees, you kind of like where you are. I mean, you look at the rest of the AL East, and those teams are not really impressing you. Toronto's been a disappointment. Tampa's not begin. And Baltimore, who we thought would be challenging the Yankees for AL East, yeah, they lost Corbin Burns to free agency, but still, good young team there when going crazy about their farm system and all that stuff. Well, right now at this point, they're only 15-32. I mean, they're like 15 games in the 500, so having a real miserable season. Again, that was the team that was supposed to challenge the Yankees, and even Toronto as well. I mean, they just been, barely, a little under 500 there. So if that's the Yankees' competition at least, that you kind of have to like your chances of the Yankees. Again, they just keep everyone staying healthy and like that. So that's why you're not really in a dire need to make any moves there. But again, Cashman, I'm sure, is always looking around to improve the team when he has an opportunity to do so. But again, if you're the Yankees, you probably like where you are right now in the AL East. And again, if your main competition right now is the 500 team in Boston, you'll take it. So as promised this week, we're going to do a matchup versus Soto. We've been doing this in some recent weeks, matching Soto up against someone like Trent Grisham, and it turns out Trent Grisham's having a better season than him. Ben Rice seems to have a better season than Soto, and even Cody Bellinger, before he started really heating up with his bat, marginally you say he was almost having a better season than Juan Soto. Now last week we had a young Yankee, Yankee coming up for the system, Andy Volpe. Looked at some of the numbers there. You could maybe say Juan Soto, okay, even though Soto's struggling, maybe doing a little bit better with him, but not that much. Again, Volpe, a scrappy kind of shortstop there. You don't expect him to hit him better than Soto, but again, statistically in some areas wasn't, especially with base hits and RBIs, doing better than Juan Soto. So we'll do another Yankee, a guy from the system. That's goes Jason Dominguez. Now I figured last week after they had that 3-run home run performance against Oakland, he would maybe really start catching fire. Really hasn't caught any fire after that since. So this might be an opportunity for Soto that he should get a really clear-cut win, which I think he might on this one. So looking at just right at this moment right now, so Soto hitting 247, so not even hitting 250, but 247. 8 home runs, 20 RBIs still. It seems like he's been stuck on 20 RBIs for really the last 3 weeks. I'm not exaggerating. And 43 hits. Like at least he's making some contact there. Now we go to Dominguez. Now a little bit lower than Soto, so he hitting 241. So Soto, he's hitting 6 point higher, but still, I mean, you want to pat yourself on the back hitting under 250, probably not there. Now he has less home runs. He only has the 5 home runs. I thought he would take off a little bit after that 3 home run performance. It really hasn't. Now Dominguez has one thing where he could beat Soto. That's RBIs. So he's got 21 RBIs. So he's got Soto beat by 1 RBIs and about 9 less hits with only 32 hits there. So you want to compare the two. Okay, I guess you would say Soto's the winner there, but not by a lot. And again, against a Yankee, who's not really having a great season, you figure Juan Soto to be astronomically better. Now you're just doing a little bit better in some areas there. But again, if you're hitting 247 there, not me much to be proud of. Now, as folks with Dominguez, kind of like with Bellinger a little bit, not being a disappointment, but he's not really doing as well as we thought he would. Again, he's got the full-time job now as a left fielder. You see him having some struggles out there, and actually now some statistics. If you like this analytical stuff, actually has him statistically as the worst left fielder in baseball defensively. And again, had that bad read. Really, what cost the game? The Yankees at the Saturday game against the Mets there had a bad read on a ball, and Bellinger kind of had to field the ball, but Dominguez kind of got in his way there. So like Bellinger had to catch and throw it at a weird angle and allowed a run score from third base on the fly there. So again, Dominguez seemed to struggle a little bit. You see him just the way he's played out there. He's taking some weird angles. He's kind of snagging at the ball there. So and this is now about 2 months into the season. You figure he would kind of snap into it. And offensively as well, it's kind of been like, okay, not terrible, but we thought he'd be a little bit better than this. But at least want to get into those fielding stats there, because if you love this stuff there, so right now, again, if I'm probably not sure what half of this even means. He's at 0.3 defensive WAR, whatever the hell that means. He's got minus five outs above average, and he has a -4 field running value. So whatever statistics you put that all together, he's actually, amongst other left fielders, he's the worst in baseball. And then you'll see another one called Fangraphs has him at a -3. So again, statistically, that's getting angles on the ball, catching the ball, making outs, all that stuff. Statistically, he's the worst left fielder in baseball. Now again, it's not killing the Yankees. Again, the Yankees doing well. Not really part. If you were depending on him for offense to be like your cleanup hitter, then you'd be concerned. He kind of bats you about 7th to 8th, 6th, 7th in the lineup there. So you're not a guy you're really depending on him, but you would like him to really heat up a little bit. So Bellinger's been up in his game a little bit. So hopefully Dominguez at least offensively can up his game as well. And returning to the bullpen for the Yankees, of course, Jonathan Loaiza. Again, the last episode here, we kind of mentioned that he was coming back. We didn't have a timetable, but again, he made his season debut against the Mets. And unfortunately, with him coming onto the team, that to make room on the roster, so they DFA'd Tyler Matzik, who we knew he was kind of not going to be here for the long haul. He's kind of a scrap heap guy that Cashman kind of picked up during the offseason, the winter there. Again, he had his best years with the Braves, but his fastball velocity has been down recently, and really nothing about him that you'd want to keep him. So hopefully he finds an opportunity somewhere else. But as for Loaiza, like him back now. It's only been a handful of games here, so not going to go crazy. But so far, at least up to this point, 2 games, 2 innings pitched, only surrendered 1 hit, 1 walk, and 2 strikeouts. But if he could kind of, obviously we know what he could do there when he's healthy. A couple of years ago with the Yankees when he was a high leverage guy, a 7th to 8th inning guy there. Now you add him to the mix with Fernando Cruz, who we've highlighted here, and of course Devin Williams, who seems to be a little bit better lately. Don't want to jinx it so far. And then again, you're starting to look at an elite type of bullpen. So that's the episode. Hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the audio podcast version of the show, Section 420 Talkin Yankees, the podcast, as well as subscribe here on YouTube, and we'll catch you next time.